Today we got ourselves some extra details because this month's newsletter has finally been released. This post contains details of the progress they've made with their alpha tracker, a text-based version with a little bit more detail of what was discussed during the August 11th livestream, a Q&A with the Director of Communications related to what goes into marketing a game like Pantheon, and a community spotlight alongside their monthly recap. In this video, I'd like to tackle the producer's letter and the monthly recap specifically. The letter starts off by explaining how Visionary Realms is all hands on deck preparing for the next pre-alpha session. Right now it seems that the September window for the pre-alpha is subject to change, and as they mentioned later in this posting, they've run into some slight issues related to their in-house networking solution known as Vinyl. This resulted in some memory corruption and server instability, so there might be a setback when it comes to the upcoming pre-alpha session. The programming team has identified the issue and is hard at work to resolve it, so they're still aiming for the September 17th window and should let us know at least by August 30th to September 3rd if they'll be able to stick to that date or not. In the middle of this, they also mentioned some of the improvements they made to Pantheon over the past year, such as converting over to Unity's high-definition rendering pipeline, the integration of their in-house networking solution known as Vinyl, of course, and enhancements to their combat framework. They would also like to share with us that the pre-alpha sessions will be taking place on one singular server to help stress test their network, and for me this is going to be extremely interesting to see because as far as VIP backers go, it seems like there's definitely over 1,000 to 2,000 plus people that are backed at the Scion level or higher already. So having all these people start in the same areas at the same time is going to be crazy to be a part of. For the experience we can expect in the pre-alpha, we will be enjoying Thronefast and HDRP, which includes exploring new regions, enemy distributions, camps, rare spawns, and loot. Class and race-wise, we can play as the Dire Lords, the Rogues, the Monks, Wizards, Enchanters, Shamans, and the newly added Clerics. For the race, we'll have access to Humans, Elves, Dwarves, Gnomes, Halflings, and the Ogres, with each one of them having newly defined base attributes and growth rates that can alter the feel of the classes played between them. And as far as the gathering and crafting systems go, we'll have access to the mining profession with a little bit on the refining / crafting side by first hunting down these nodes, followed by refining them into metals. You'll also be gaining access to the recently showcased technique system for the various weapons we'll be using throughout Terminus. And finally, they state how we'll be joining our friends and fellow VIPs on a single server in the hopes of putting their networking system to the test. In the next section of the producer letter, we get a breakdown of the roadmap to alpha progress. A big thing that I've noticed a lot of people talking about in the community is hoping for the networking overhaul to appear as completed on the tracker. Because networking is such a big part of MMOs, it's crucial to have a stable system on the back end, or as we've seen many times, things can quickly start to fall apart. For this producer's letter, they have it listed as in progress, with the note stating that they are continuing to identify and address minor bugs related to the Vinyl integration, along with some more details for the conflict they experienced, and that the implementation of cross-tile NPC pathfinding has been successfully completed. Now personally, I'm hoping what they mean by this is that we will be seeing NPCs that are capable of roaming, and that this expands to dynamic events such as world bosses, field bosses, and potentially roaming traders, bandits, and the like. This was one of my favorite experiences while playing the game known as V Rising, and a good reason why the Unity engine is my top favorite, which Pantheon is also being built on. Some of the most popular games on Steam and my personal favorites have been built on Unity, examples being games like Kenshi, Subnautica, Cuphead is actually on Unity too, which surprised me, and many more of the popular ones like Escape from Tarkov, Rust, hell I think even Genshin Impact runs on Unity as well. In fact, the thing about Unity that draws me to favor it so much is that although it may not be as high fidelity as Unreal games a lot of the time, when it comes to the gameplay and feature aspects it can be much more expansive. There's exceptions to this on both sides of course, but for me it's just something I've noticed over the years. But anyway, back to the topic. In the alpha tracker we have NPC combat awareness as the first completed listing. As an extra note for this, the ongoing combat awareness content will be added to the game as more NPCs and encounters are developed on the road to alpha. For those that have never heard about this system before, I believe it is known as NPC combat tactics, and the idea is to make fighting a bit more tactical and ask the players to be a little bit more attentive with what abilities to use and when, alongside needing to consider things such as positioning. They might use abilities to interrupt player character healing, clearing out crowd control we apply, or even utilizing skills to knock the tank off balance. Things you don't typically see in modern MMOs, so I'm sure this will end up being something the players of Pantheon will really appreciate. Following this, we've got some more systems that are listed as complete, the asset and terrain streaming, HDRP conversion, but classes and combat is still of course just in progress, with the cleric being one of the new additions, along with passive traits and additional abilities for some of the current classes. Network overhaul, which we've already covered quite a bit, that's being listed as to do and scheduled for implementation once the networking system has been completed, ability loadouts, which is a tool that lets us save and load predefined hotbar configurations, The gathering and crafting systems that are listed next will probably be in development for quite some time, because like we mentioned before, the majority of content that will be available through these systems will be related to mining and refinement. But as far as the roadmap goes, the perception system is up next, and in my mind, this is probably going to be one of the last systems to get fully completed. I'm expecting this just because of the sheer amount of detail that would need to go into it. This is the type of system that would allow you to get potential questline clues, or maybe a piece of hidden treasure while walking down the road. Around every corner there might be something new to discover with Perception and Pantheon. It's one of those systems I'm looking forward to the most, and my only hope is that they take as much time as they need to perfect it, because this is yet another system we don't see very often in modern MMOs. Following Perception, we've got factions, climbing improvements, and swimming, with the faction system having a crucial additional detail stating that while the faction system is fully integrated and working, additional development will be needed to support leveraging factions for other aspects of gameplay, such as gaining access to a specific task, storylines, merchants, etc. After these three, we've got Acclamation on the to-do list, and currently they're working to implement improvements to the user experience by improving the audio-visual components, so I would take this as improving things such as matching the sound we hear during a winter storm or the sound of rain, for example. It might be related to other things entirely, but that's how I read it when I first saw that. But following this, we have the dispositions and traits still listed as in progress, or as I understand it, enemy NPC affixes. The looking for group tool and the basic guild system are after this, still listed as to do, but the banking system, as we talked about in a previous video, is currently still marked as fully complete. We next come to the art section of the roadmap, starting off with the zones. At the moment, they're working on visual polish for points of interest throughout Thronefast, completed concept work for custom terrain in this region and Avendir, created additional environmental props for character customization, created additional environmental props for the Mad Moors and Welpon regions of Wild Zen, which is the land of the halflings, and created new modular cave kits to allow for quick creation of caves throughout the world. Player models is the next system, and like they mentioned during the live stream of August 11th, they have successfully completed a high-resolution sculpt of the human female model and expect to have the male model done before the end of the current month. For the last couple sections still tagged as in progress, we have NPC models, general 3D assets, and animations, with the additional note stating that they are nearing completion to remediate older animations on a revised player rig, nearing completion of updating climbing animations, and initiated discovery phase for necessary rig elements to support character customization. And the last section, of course, ties into audio, which is described as developing environmental soundscapes, creating unique sound effects for players and NPCs, and introducing ambient and signature music. Something I just thought about as I read that is I hope there's a plan for some voice acting in the future and potentially cinematics in certain cases. Something I remember suggesting during New World's development that sounded like a really cool concept is developing flashback cinematics that can be triggered when exploring the world. In Pantheon's case, there's a lot of rich backstory there, and it would be amazing to see something like this come alive. Imagine seeing the battle during the Age of Chaos, or potentially being able to take control of an NPC that was a part of the battle, like how some games handle their lore-based flashbacks. But overall, that's the main gist of what I wanted to cover for the August newsletter. The month in review essentially dives into topics like the stream that Visionary Realms did with Co-Carnage, the introduction to crafting and gathering that will be featured in the upcoming test, changes to the starting area of Thronefast, testing the newly implemented networking solution known as Vinyl, the introduction of the Cleric class in the testing phase, weapon techniques that will be fully available to test. I'm excited to see what comes from Pantheon in the next few months, and although I remain skeptical that many of these systems may remain undone for the next 5 to 6 months at least, I really hope they're able to make great improvements and more importantly start conducting longer pre-alpha sessions so players can give more detailed and diverse feedback. Catch you on the next one.
Just